Hi, I'm Amy Ketchum,
And I'm Amy Cassio.
and you're listening to the Double A Horror Highway.
And today we are here to talk about Quentin Tarantino's Death Proof, which came out in 2007.
And if you've not seen this movie, here's the plot summary. Our story starts in Texas, where three friends, Arlene, Shanna, and radio DJ Jungle Julia, stop at a bar on their way to a lake house getaway to celebrate Julia's birthday. Earlier, Julia made a radio announcement offering a free lap dance from Arlene if someone addresses her as Butterfly, buys her a drink, and recites part of a particular Robert Frost poem. Aging Hollywood stuntman Mike follows these steps, after we're led to believe that he's been stalking them, and he claims the free lap dance. Later, the group of women decide to leave, and a fellow bar patron, Pam, catches a ride with stuntman Mike. As he's driving her home, we discover that the car is death-proof, so that the driver can survive stunts on movies. Unfortunately, the passenger side is not death-proof, and he proceeds to drive recklessly in order to kill Pam, which he finds quite thrilling. Next, he catches up to the four women from the bar, drives into them at a high speed, killing all four as well, claiming it was an accident when he is at the hospital later. 14 months later, Mike appears to be stalking four new women in Tennessee. However, unbeknownst to him, one of them is a stunt woman. While the women plan to have some fun test driving a 1970 Dodge Challenger, the same model of car from the action movie Vanishing Point, and performing a dangerous stunt on the open road, Mike has a plan of his own. Mike begins attacking them with his death-proof car while Zoe Bell is holding on for her life to the hood of the Challenger. After a long chase and some fighting, they end up outside of their cars, where the women find great pleasure, savagely beating him to death. What a wonderful sounding movie.
I know. So this movie stars Kurt Russell, Rosaria Dawson, Vanessa Ferlito, Jordan Ladd, Rose McGowan, Sidney Poitier, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and stuntwoman Zoe Bell. And we also see a minor part from Eli Roth, who did Hostel and Cabin Fever. So, if we talk about the time period a little bit, here's a few pop culture things that were happening at that time, just to kind of bring you back. So, this was the debut of the iPhone. This was the same year that Britney Spears broke down and, she had that meltdown and shaved her head. This was the year that Paris Hilton went to jail for 23 days, and then she talked about how horrifying it was. This is also when the last Harry Potter book was released. I am a huge fan, and so I remember exactly what I was doing that day. This is also the year that Lindsay Lohan went to rehab and then she was arrested for a DUI. The Writers Guild of America went on strike this year, which I clearly remember because I was watching Grey's Anatomy that year, and so it got cut short for season 4, and I was not into it. I didn't really understand it. I was just like, oh my god, I just want my show. And lastly, we had a Spice Girls reunion tour that year.
Wow.
And that's a few things that were going on that year.
Wow. I would have thought they would have still been a band in 2007, and they were already having
I
a reunion
know.
tour. Wow.
I know. It's like, how quickly did they break up? I don't know. I wasn't a Spice Girls fan. Don't murder me.
Well, Death Proof has been listed in the top 50 films of 2007 by IMDb. So some of the other movies from that year were Transformers, Disturbia, Shrek the Third, Rob Zombie's Halloween, Superbad, The Bourne Ultimatum, and a movie I really like, which is called There Will Be Blood.
So, as far as the history of the making of this movie, it was Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez. Robert Rodriguez. So they decided to make an exploitation film. Like both of them were going to make an exploitation film and then package them together as a double feature, featuring fake trailers and some vintage house ads, all in the style of old grindhouse movies. So the idea was to recreate the experience of going to see these sleazy movies at the so-called grindhouses that were in New York in the 70s. So for Quentin Tarantino's movie, he was inspired by the way that stunt cars were death-proof by stuntmen so that their drivers could survive these horrific collisions and high-speed crashes. And so this fascination led to him wanting to produce a film that was kind of like a slasher film that features an upset stuntman with a death-proof car that he uses to stalk and kill sexy women. He decided to use the structure of a slasher film so that he could create something more strict and he just wanted to keep it simple and straightforward. So, in the look and the feel of this film, it went out of its way to imitate the style of exploitation cinema. And I believe you have some things to tell us about the grindhouse era.
Well, I sure do, Cassio. The term grindhouse referred to small inner city theaters and later a genre. Burlesque movies that were played at the theaters in the 60s had a bump and grind style of dance, which is where the name grindhouse originally came from. After burlesque, the theaters began showing exploitation films, often double features, and thus grindhouse movies as a genre and grindhouse theaters became an interchangeable term. Beginning in the 1960s and reaching its height in the 1970s, the subject matter of grindhouse films was dominated by explicit sex, violence, bizarre or perverse plot points, gore, and other taboo content. Oh, and I'll add, they were often intentionally not politically correct. They pushed the envelope and could be viewed as freedom of expression movies, testing the audience's limits and exploring the artistic expression of the filmmakers. They're also called exploitation films. Taken from Google, an exploitation film is a film that attempts to succeed financially by exploiting current trends, niche genre, or lurid content. Exploitation films are generally low quality B movies. They sometimes attract critical attention and sometimes even a cult following. And so some of our modern exploitation films, it's kind of a stretch to actually come up with any, truly. But the short list I have is Machete, which is probably the closest, which is also a Robert Rodriguez film, Black Snake Moan, and The Devil's Rejects. Death Proof is a watered down, very PC in comparison, modern tribute to the blood soaked exploitation films of the 70s. This film pays tribute to slasher, exploitation, and muscle car films of the 70s. In particular, Steve McQueen's Bullet comes to mind.
I wanted to make a comment on Machete because Machete only became a real movie because they made a fake trailer for that movie for Grindhouse.
Right,
And then they developed it into like a full movie.
right. And I love Machete. I love Lindsay Lohan,
Oh God, I forgot she was
as we
in that.
know. Well, okay, one of the things that was very common with the grindhouse, if we want to call them that, but they're really exploitation films of the 70s, is that there are nuns with guns. Like that's a very common theme among these movies. I mean, even the movies you wouldn't expect it to pop up in. For example, Pam Grier's Black Mama, White Mama. There's a scene where they're dressed as nuns. So that's one of my favorite parts of Machete is when Lindsay Lohan becomes a nun with a gun, because that is truly a great tribute back to those movies of the 70s.
I think I'm gonna have to rewatch Machete because it's been a while and I don't remember any of this.
Oh, it's great.
Michelle Rodriguez was in Machete, and so I think she's just fantastic in general.
Right, she's the taco food truck girl, who might be she. But now we're totally getting into another movie. So the exploitation films were very often intentionally not politically correct. And, a part of that obviously is racism. And the answer to that, as far as the African American films at the time, was what we labeled blaxploitation, which are actually my favorite out of all these old films because it's where the African American character is a hero. There's lots of vigilantes and there's lots of action and violence. And, probably the biggest is Shaft, and then out of the female movies is Pam Grier has a whole, slew of them. Coffee and Foxy Brown. Yeah.
I remember loving Foxy Brown when I saw it.
Yeah. Pam Grier's great. I love all of them. My favorite is Black Mama, White Mama. So, I mean, there's kind of two different things happening there. The original exploitation films, I view them as more of super duper gory, lots of TNA.
TNA. I didn't know
yes.
I was going to hear you say TNA today.
Yeah, well, I mean that's what it's all about, right? Exploiting women. So it's really refreshing to me. If you're into watching the old exploitation films, they're super gory and disgusting, really, and over the top. But then when you watch the blaxploitation films with Pam Grier, it's like a totally different world. Even though they're still exploiting a variety of things, they're very strong, and you have a female hero.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel that this movie, Death Proof, is a watered down version of what an exploitation film truly was, because they don't cross those lines. They don't put anything in here that's really offensive as far as being politically correct.
I mean, I don't feel like, yeah, I don't feel like I thought there was anything horribly wrong with this movie in that way. Well, I mean, okay, so yeah, the movie does get a little bit male gazy at parts, but I don't know. I mean, I didn't mind it in this movie. It wasn't like excessive. I didn't think it was excessive.
Right. I felt like the first half is the male gaze, and then the second half that it flips. And that's what I really like about this movie is
Hmm.
that we go from these women who are like prey and unknowing, and then we flip it into these very strong women that are, you know, they're ready to roll.
Yeah.
You screw with them, they're going to respond.
Yeah, that's
um,
great.
yeah.
So how did you discover this movie?
Well, I remember in 2007, I already had my radio show for 3 years, and I was constantly looking for, movies that had strong female characters to talk about and all that stuff. And also, I lived with a huge Quentin Tarantino fan, so I'm kind of thinking that she probably already had it on her radar.
Mhm.
But I remember waiting for it to hit Blockbuster, that it was like this really big deal for this to come out and to go get it. And also, I remember Blockbuster had a bunch of posters that they were selling. Like they had a whole death proof area at Blockbuster. Um,
Wow.
I'm not for sure what they're called. They're like a harder cardboard poster. I don't know what these things are called.
Blockbuster in 2007.
Yeah.
Was it really big then still? I can't remember video stores in 2007. Yeah, I guess so because
Yeah.
Netflix didn't really hit and pick up until about 2010, 11, 12, and that killed it.
Yeah. So I just remember this whole corner, of Blockbuster had all this death proof stuff.
So did you get anything? Did you get any like posters or
Yes.
you did?
Yes.
Do you still
Yeah.
have that stuff?
Yes.
Oh, you do. What do you have?
They are, I'm not for sure what they're called. They're like a smaller poster. They're cardboard. I want to say 11 by 14. I don't know what they are. Maybe they're a little bit different. So one's the cover, and one is Stuntman Mike in his car. And then also a very large Pulp Fiction. I don't know what this stuff is. It's like a print on a
Hmm.
really thick backing. I don't know. Like they're higher quality than just posters, but there you have it. They had like a whole corner.
You basically got some posters, some high quality
Yeah.
posters.
Right. It was a big deal, I guess. I mean, if they had a display at Blockbuster, it was a big deal to me.
Well, I don't know that I knew about this movie at the time. I think maybe I saw it maybe a year or two later because I love Quentin Tarantino movies, and so like I was a huge fan of Pulp Fiction, and I just followed him, and so like I watched this movie and I loved it. That's kind of when I decided that it seemed to be my favorite Quentin Tarantino movie.
Yeah, I think this movie is special also because I think it's his only movie that's in chronological order.
Yes.
So it's easy to watch it just straight through. You don't have to use your brain to put the pieces back together. It's like it just flows really well and easy.
Yeah. So the weird thing to me about this movie is that I keep reading a lot of people saying that this is their least favorite of his movies, and he himself has said this is also his least favorite. It's not that he dislikes it, but like out of all of his movies, this is his least favorite. And he kind of feels like he tried too hard with it.
Hmm.
And yeah, that's just not how I feel at all about it.
Right. When you first mentioned that to me a few weeks ago, that this is like, the movie people don't like of his, I couldn't believe it. I've never heard that before. I just could not believe that at all. I mean, this is up there. This might be my favorite. I mean, I felt he was on a roll with Kill Bill right before this.
Hmm.
Like, I don't see how, I mean, this, to me, they go together as far as strong women and revenge. So I don't really see how people could see this as a bad movie. I'm thinking it might be because it was a double feature with Planet Terror. That a lot of people didn't like Planet Terror and they're just grouping them together.
I don't know.
Um, I personally don't like Planet Terror.
I love Planetary. I think it's pretty. Oh my god, I love it. It's like the perfect amount of campy for me.
I did love Rose McGowan's leg as a gun. That was awesome.
Yeah.
But I honestly, I don't remember it that well. Like, I did not like it. And I didn't even want to watch Death Proof at the time because I thought they would be very similar.
Uh huh.
So as a double feature, we watched Plant Terror first, and I was like, oh my god, I can't watch any more of this. I thought Death Proof would be part two, but then we put in Death Proof. We might have even watched it the next day. Like, I just could not do it because I thought it was going to be the same thing, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is a totally different vibe. This is a totally
Yes.
different movie than Planet Terror. But yeah, I find that very shocking. I guess for him, maybe because he's so creative and artistic, that to him, since this is chronological and straightforward, that he just isn't as proud of it maybe as his more complicated stories. I don't know. I think it's great.
Well, when we had to research this movie, and so when I was doing that, I'm happy to say that like the newer comments are people now saying that they really like this movie. Like there's a lot of people now that I'm reading like it. Whereas before, like not even that recently, all the forums and the comments are just like, this movie, or like they don't like it.
Hmm.
It's not their favorite. It's their least favorite. Or they just don't like it at all.
So, what kind of impact did this have on you personally?
Well, I really, really love this movie. I feel like, I mean, I've rewatched it so many times, and I always feel a lot of joy when I rewatch this movie. The reason that I really like it is because I feel like it's a movie that is a day in the life.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like that because there's this sweet spot in movies where they're just starting out and there's no drama. Like, they haven't gotten to the drama or the plot, like the heavy plot points yet. They're just introducing the characters. It's like a day in their lives. We're following them, we're watching them, and there's just like a lot of dialogue usually. And so I feel like almost the entire first half of Death Proof is just that. It's like it's a day in the life of these characters and like what they're doing, and I love it. And I think that was a reason why people didn't like it. They felt like it was too slow, it was too boring, there was talking, and like I could see that, but like for me, I really liked it because I think the dialogue is fantastic. It's hilarious. It's just great. I love all of the characters. I just love watching them. I think they're all like super interesting and have like interesting things to say, and they're just fun and funny. I love the actresses. So if you're into all of those things, then this kind of a style will work for you. Like you can do a day in the life because
Right.
you're here for all of the things that it's offering you before we get to the actual like drama and the plot stuff. So,
Right.
what about you? Like, what do you feel about it?
Well, an impact on me, let's see. I thought this movie is really empowering. It's on my list of favorites as far as movies with empowering women, themes of some sort. And I mean, really, I mean, between us, we like this kind of stuff. So we have a pretty good list, I'm sure, of movies that feature women in these empowering type roles.
Uh-huh.
But really, truly, I mean, in comparison to all the other movies coming out, it's a very small list. It's just a handful. So I think they're very important. I mean, even when I was looking at the top 50 of 2007, I didn't see one, I don't think, other movie that had some type of empowering, strong woman type role happening in it. So to me, that makes this movie even more important as far as its existence. And I love live stunts. One thing I used to love as a child was watching, like Saturday, like maybe it was on Channel USA, I don't remember, but they would play these old Jackie Chan movies from the 70s that weren't even in English. This was before he became a popular American actor. And he did all of his stunts, his own stunts. And like, I've always just loved stunts. So that was very, very exciting to me that we have a true stunt woman on the hood of a car, that these are real stunts.
Uh-huh.
And also the fact that Zoe Bell, who's a stunt woman, got her first acting gig. Like, that must be a lot of pressure to, your first movie is a Quentin Tarantino movie. And you're one of the primary characters.
Well, are you talking about this movie or are you talking about her doing her stunt doubles stuff?
Her in this movie, yeah. I mean, this is her first movie where she's an actor.
Okay, so the thing about it is that she didn't know. She just thought she was coming on to do like a minor part.
Oh.
And so even when she was doing it, she thought that it was just going to be a minor thing.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, so she thought it was just kind of going to be like a cameo, and she didn't kind of really get the scope of it until she was seeing who was in it. And then also, I don't know how true this is, but I read that she truly didn't realize how big this role was until she saw her name on the film posters next to like these other big stars like Rose McGowan, Kurt Russell, Rosario Dawson, and then she was like, "Okay, I get it. This is a huge part."
Huh. Yeah, maybe since it's two split stories, maybe they were isolated in their filming from one another
Mm.
and they were unaware of how much of the movie was going to be them versus the other story. Because half of it was filmed in Texas and the other half was filmed in, I don't know, now I just forgot, California, I guess. They say it's Tennessee, but I
Yeah.
think it's filmed in California. Like it was two different locations. So that makes sense. Yeah, I'd watched some footage on the DVD, the extra footage, and Quentin says that when he had her as the stunt woman for Uma and Kill Bill, that he knew that she was going to be on his list of females for his. He didn't know what he was going to do as far as this movie, but he wanted to have a movie where he had a group of women and he wanted her to be a part of that group of women. Like he already had her in mind. She may have not have known that, but yeah. So I thought it was really cool that he gave her that opportunity to move from stunt woman to the second name in the cast listed on IMDb.
Yes.
So that's a big deal.
Yeah.
To have never been in a movie and now you're in a Quentin Tarantino movie as a star. Yeah, so overall, I just feel it's a very empowering, powerful, important movie. And, it doesn't have an effect on me as far as I don't watch it year after year, but I've probably seen this movie 20 times, I'd say. It's definitely up there. So, since this is an exploitation film and women are exploited, in our 1970s versions, he has actually embraced it a little bit. Not too offensive, though. And one of the first themes that we see as far as exploiting women is feet. So he clearly has a foot fetish. There are feet everywhere. Jungle Julia's feet at the very beginning, and walking through her apartment. It's focused on her feet. She lays on the couch. There's a big picture of a famous actress. I don't know who it is, though. Do you know who it was?
No, I don't. But she's pretty much barefoot through the entire movie, and I want to know how is she getting away with this? Or maybe she's wearing flip-flops, I don't know. But she's always barefoot.
Right. And she's got that foot out the window.
Her feet are always up, like if they're outside of the bar. They're just hanging up, they're in
Right.
the rain, whatever.
And Abernathy's foot later in the movie is hanging out the car window. There's a lot of feet action happening. And then another theme that we see is women of variety. There's lots of different women, types of women, women of color. And I felt that was kind of, it's not, it's, whatever now, but I think that was kind of an homage back to the 70s of, take your pick, guys. You're in this bar, you've got all kinds of women. That just kind of stood out to me. I mean, maybe that was a very fine detail. And then we've got the babysitter twins, like the male fantasy, the fantasy twins.
Well, aren't they from Planet Terror? I think that they're from Planet Terror.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. And they don't speak in this movie, but they do speak in Planet Terror.
They dance a lot.
Yes, and they're in Machete too.
Oh,
Really? They are the
Okay.
nurses in Machete. And then we've got Rose McGowan, who plays Pam, and she has this almost white hair. In Planet Terror, she's got her usual dark hair. So I felt that might have been on purpose. I don't know, because they probably were filming the movies about the same time. So he wanted her character to be very different from the Planet Terror character. And, she then leads us into the next theme of don't ride with strangers. Where Pam rides with a stranger. She goes out and rides with Mike the stuntman. And that's her last ride. Men are pigs. I think that was a theme in the first half, that he's sitting there chowing down on those nachos, but it's like the most disgusting
I hate
thing.
that. Why did they need to do it that way? It's just like dripping off his face.
Right, and he's sucking his fingers.
But at the same time, it's like I always have to go eat nachos after I watch this.
Right.
Which we both did.
Right. While that's happening, you've got the two guys sitting next to him at the bar, and they're having some gross, conversation of what they want to do to women or whatever. Like it was this whole
How can they
like,
get to the beach house with them? Let's get them really drunk.
right.
So after we bring the girls' drinks, in fairly rapid order, but not obvious, we order 2 more rounds of shots. You think they're gonna fall for that? Will be very convincing. Now it's time to turn up the volume. No more fucking around. We go to Jaeger shots. Man, they're not gonna drink Jaeger shots. Dude, as long as a guy's buying the booze, a fucking bitch will drink anything.
Then all of a sudden, no guys at the lake house turns into a couple of guys at the lake house.
Right, exactly.
So it's like you've got this gross discussion going on, like this pig discussion, and then you've got a man eating like a pig, so to speak, eating very gross. So I felt that was some type of theme that was happening in the first half until we flip it. And then, of course, Hillbilly Jasper in the second half. He's also a pretty creepy dude.
He's very, very creepy, but I love his creepy laugh.
If you'll excuse me for a moment, I'd just like to have a word alone with my business associate.
You ladies take your time.
There's a lot of creepy laughing
it's hilarious.
in this.
And then he is in Kill Bill. He's a truck driver in Kill Bill in 1 and 2. So there's some speculation of whether or not it's the same character, that it could have been the same character, because the guy in Kill Bill does not have a name. What themes do you have? Did you come up with?
I just wrote down that it's very dialogue heavy, which I kind of already talked about, is that there's more dialogue to this movie than action. The action isn't really until like the last 20 minutes, aside from like when the first half when they get killed. But there's a lot of build up, a lot of dialogue. I wrote that it's supposed to be like a slasher, but it's weird because usually in a slasher, it feels like somebody is stalking like 1 or 2 people at a time, and then like they go through and like kill each person.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't take that long for each person to get killed. But like in this, it's like we just see a little bit of him stalking them, and then it takes a very long time, and then he kills them all like at once. It doesn't feel like a slasher in the way that I think of slashers, where everything is just happening rapidly. There's it takes a long time before you get there.
And I wonder how long he was stalking the first group, because he has pictures of them in his car. So he's taken pictures and he's had them developed. So this has been going on for a while.
Yeah. I kind of want to know more background about Stuntman Mike. Like, like you said, like how long has he been, like what is his pattern as a stalker and a killer? But we don't really get to know that.
Yeah, the time frame of this movie is he's in Texas, and then 14 months after that event, he's in Tennessee. So maybe that is what he does. Maybe he travels. Maybe he stalks, kills, and then goes to another state.
And then kills everybody in one go.
Well, it's just a car accident, right? And he's got a car that doesn't kill him, so... And if he's in a different state, they may not have record from another state that he's already had a similar accident.
So I guess that leads us into talking about our monster of the movie.
Well, I think we've got 2 monsters. One is Kurt Russell, Stuntman Mike, because he gets a thrill from killing women. And then Death Proof is his car, which is the tool. And the rule is that the monster can only be killed by another stunt person. However, they equally get a thrill, which is the interesting part.
See, I didn't realize that until this watch when I was researching it, is that he was only actually able to be taken out by another stunt person.
Right, because their car is not death proof, but they knew how to drive it. They knew how to stay cool, how to handle the situation. And they, are stunt people, and they get a thrill, and they, it was a thrill of the chase.
Yeah.
So it really backfired on him that time.
Yeah, so this, like Quentin Tarantino obviously loves, like, real stunts. And so in researching about this movie, of course this is a throwback to the days of doing real stunts, and he really just doesn't like CGI and, like, digital stuff. And so through Stuntman Mike, he even says these things, and he's kind of, like, scoffing at it.
How do you make a car death-proof?
Well, that's what stuntmen do. You've seen a movie where a car gets into some smash-up there ain't no way in hell anybody's walking away from.
Yeah.
Well, how do you think they accomplished that?
CGI?
Well, unfortunately, Pam, nowadays, more often than not, you're right. But back in the all or nothing days, Vanishing Point days, the Dirty Mary Crazy Larry days, the White Line Fever days, real cars smashing into real cars, real dumb people driving them.
And it's sort of like this movie is elevating the stuntman compared to like the modern day digital effects that you can do.
Right. And, you know, usually the stuntman, we don't know him.
Yeah.
It's just someone in the
Mhm.
back. You know, we never, you know, they are a body double. We have no idea who they are. They don't really receive recognition. And that's a part of what I like about Zoe Bell is that we actually have access to a whole documentary on her being a stunt person. It's called Double Dare. How she came from New Zealand, where she was the Xena double, which is amazing. Hundreds of episodes of Xena. Hello. And she traveled here to train with Jeannie Eppers, who was Wonder Woman in the 70s for the TV show. And her family is like the stunt family in America, like the best people you could possibly train with, which is how she got the role for Kill Bill, where she's the body double of Uma, which led her to Death Proof, where now she is a feature film star. So I love her journey. You know, I just love that we can actually just sit down and watch a whole documentary on her and in that journey, because I don't know if there's anything else quite like that on stunt people. Like, we never really know their names or their faces.
I know, I feel like that's really sad, is that there's all these people working on movies that are doing like this important work, but we don't know who they are.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they're getting injured.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones, you know, enduring all the injury and doing all the cool stuff, but we don't know who they are. So I really like that about this movie, that, you know, the stunt people are the center of it. So we have two groups of women in this movie, each of 4. And the first group of women, they are only seeking each other's sisterhood, right? It's a very specific role that we see of those characters. They're just kind of hanging out, like, you know, sisters, buddies. You know, they're getting ready for their trip. They're hanging out at the bar. Our second group has a more fluid, shifting sense, and it's almost like family roles. Tracy Toms, who plays Kim, for example, is kind of like the mother role at one point. You know, you could even say that her and Zoe at one point are kind of like husband and wife once they snap into their stuntman or stuntwoman type of role. You know, that type of interaction. And Abernathy and Lee are kind of like the children. You know, it's kind of interesting. The dynamics are different between the two groups. It's like he wanted us to view them as very different groups of friends. You know, you've got these that are just kind of chill sisterhood, and then these over here that are more like a functioning family, and they're interacting in this different way. You know, yeah, sure, they leave Lee with Jasper, which is really screwed up.
They did her so wrong. That was so wrong.
But the other 3 in the car, they have this unity, you know, they're unified. And because of that unity, they can take on the Death Proof car and they can take on Stuntman Mike. The first group couldn't do it, I don't think. I mean, even if they were given that opportunity, they aren't close in that way. I think they would have sold each other out if it came down to it in some way. But there's a real unity of the second group, which I really liked about it. So, Amy Cassio, how did you feel about the cinematography of this film?
So I think Death Proof is interesting because, I mean, all of his movies are filled with his love of movies, but Death Proof is the one that is filled with love of film itself, the tactile, physical medium. I think it kind of leads into, like, this is an interesting and kind of, like, important film in a way, because he's doing a thing to represent something that has pretty much died out. So we're getting to see his love of the actual film. So he says that he does not like digital projection. He doesn't like digital filmmaking. He doesn't want any part of it. It's kind of sad because, you know, listening to him talk, he loves movies. So he grew up watching movies in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. And then, you know, he starts his career in the 90s. And then, you know, about a decade later, everything starts to shift to become digital. And he's just like, this is not what I signed up for. I signed up for film, not digital stuff. And so That's got to be kind of like, I don't know, disappointing for him. And so I read that he does have a theater where he does show a double feature every single night on actual film. I guess, that's kind of his way of keeping this alive. But Death Proof, this is the only movie that he actually did the cinematography for. I don't know if you knew that, but I didn't know that, but he did that for this movie.
Oh, no, I didn't. Wow.
And so, as we watch this movie, we see how that's, it's scratched. It looks like it's scratched up. We have these awkward jump cuts. Things look like they're cut out of it. I read that in some of the original screenings in the theater, they cut out the lap dance, but some people did see it. So I don't know if like people got mad and they added it back in, or if it was just like different theaters got different versions.
Well, and that's censorship.
I mean, he did it. Like, it was supposed to be a part of...
Oh, he did?
Yeah, it was just supposed to be a part of that grindhouse feel where movies... Because the thing with the grindhouse movies is that they didn't have a lot of copies of the reels, and so they were getting carried around, and like then they started to get scratched up, and then like you start losing pieces of it, and so he's just trying to like represent that aspect of it. But like that's not the thing that you want to cut out of the movie, because that's like, we're kind of looking for that part to happen for quite a while, because they have a whole conversation about it, that it could happen. Some guy might come up to you and say such and such, and then you could decide if you want to give him a lap dance or not.
Right. So the scene where stuntman Mike passes up the first group after they've left the bar and it's night, and he's going to get in front of them and do something awful. I thought that was a pretty fantastic scene, as gnarly as it was. That was probably one of my favorite parts of the cinematography, was the car actually on impact running over the other car, and all the horrible things that happened to them.
The wonderfully horrible things.
I mean, the worst to me was Jungle Julia's leg being completely dismembered from her, because everybody knows you don't stick your foot out the window.
Or any limbs, ever. I mean, did you watch Hereditary, anybody?
I mean, when I was growing up, in my town, if you stuck your foot out the window, it was just like viewed as hillbilly, or just all these horrible things are attached to that. Like you just don't have common sense, or all these just bad things. So as soon as her foot went out the window, I just thought, where is your common sense? If you get into a wreck, that's a horrible position to be in. And sure enough, that's what happened to her. But I thought that was a great scene as far as how it was filmed.
Oh, yeah.
And, and I'd watched a bit on it about how they were going 80 miles per hour. The actual stuntmen who performed it, that it's a real impact. There was nothing fake about it. The car did go over top of the other car. It flipped on its hood 2 or 3 times, slid on its side. And they said that they only had like 25% chance of actually achieving that, when he said that's what he wanted. You can't really do a lot with the car. You can't guarantee that that's going to happen, So it turned out exactly how he wanted it, which was pretty cool.
I do like how they took the time to show each death individually. Like, they didn't show them all at once. Yeah. It was just like, we're going to take our time and show you in great detail how each person dies. And I would argue that getting a tire to the face is a worse death than losing your leg. I can't imagine that. Having this tire just like shredding your face apart.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. And that goes back to this being a grindhouse exploitation film. They wanted to be gory. They wanted to show us all the details. And they achieved it. Mm-hmm. I thought it was much more terrifying, though, when he has Pam in the car. And he says, which way are you going, right or left? And she chooses the wrong way, of course. Well, there's no right way.
The way that he's not going.
And he says, well, right, if you would have chosen the way I am going, then you wouldn't be getting scared right now.
Well, Pam, which way you going? Left or right?
Right.
That's too bad.
Hi.
Well, because there was a 50-50 shot on whether you'd be going left or right. You see, we're both going left. You could have just as easily been going left, too, and if that was the case, it would have been a while before you started getting scared. Since you're going the other way, I'm afraid you're gonna have to start getting scared immediately.
So that to me was more terrifying. And she was just, her role in this movie was just complete innocence, naivety. So it made that whole scene really sad in a realistic way. So I actually found that more disturbing than the horrible car crash that followed with the four ladies, because it was more realistic, which is always more disturbing to me.
So if we get into the music, should we go to the music?
So this movie had lots of great music. And one of the things that it featured is Quentin Tarantino's jukebox from his house, which is actually named Amy, which I thought was pretty cool because you're on the AA highway after all.
With Amy and Amy.
It's full of 45 records from different genres, mostly from the 70s and 60s. So we experienced all kinds of really cool music in this movie.
For me, I always feel like the music is always very memorable and stylish in all of his movies. And I really like a lot of the songs in this movie. It's like if I hear the song, I can instantly see the scene that's happening. It's like they're just so closely related for me. We start out with that first song, The Last Race, which kind of reminds me of something that would be in Pulp Fiction. It's kind of got that, like, I don't know if you would call it surf rock, but like maybe a very slow version of surf rock, but it's got that surf rock sounding guitar, which I love.
Right.
But that's the only song like that in this movie. So then we have Baby It's You, which I really like that version.
Right, so that's by Smith.
And then we have Down in Mexico, which is the lap dance scene, which I love.
Coasters.
There's pretty much a huge build up to this scene. And it's fantastic. I love it. I love the lap dance scene.
And I love the coasters. They've got so many good songs. That was a great song choice.
And so there's this one point where Jungle Julia, she leaves the bar, she goes outside to like send a text, and the music gets really weird. And like there's like I think it's piano music, and like I always thought that was very weird and out of place compared to the rest of the movie. But like when I was researching this movie, I learned that that's a song from one of his favorite movies, which is called Blowout. And I've seen that movie, but it's got the movie Blowout stars John Travolta, and that's one of his favorite movies. And so that is the theme song to that movie. So it's kind of like a tribute to that. So he just put that into his movie. So like, I think that's why it feels different from the rest. It's like he was kind of, putting this inspirational song into his movie as like a little shout out. But that explained a lot to me about why it felt so off. And now that I know that, I understand, and it doesn't feel so strange to me anymore. Then we have Hold On Tight, which is from the car death scene. I didn't really like that song a lot at first, but I think it kind of like grew on me. I really like watching them all dancing to it in the car, and they're just, speeding down the road. I like when the music stops, the drums just come in, and then we have like the guitar coming in, and then they all die. We have another song, which is called It's So Easy, which is interesting because that is from the soundtrack of the movie Cruising from 1980. Have you ever seen this movie?
No, I haven't, but I think it looks really good. Like, I think that's going to be on my near future watch list. I really like Al Pacino.
Yeah, so this is a gay crime thriller with Al Pacino. He goes undercover to catch a serial killer who is going after gay men in the leather scene in the 70s. You should definitely watch it. I remember watching it one summer when I was on unemployment, and I was watching a lot of movies. And so that's kind of my memory of it. It's just like, it's late at night, it's hot, I've got my mood lights going, and then I put on Cruising, having no idea what to expect, and I thought it was really interesting, especially for being like 1980 and starring Al Pacino. I mean, I don't know how famous he was at that point, but I mean, I think he had to have been.
Yeah, he already had The Godfather at that point.
Yeah, it was like he's playing. I mean, he's not really a gay man in the movie, but he's playing a gay man in the movie. Like, he's pretending in the movie.
Well, and my understanding is that it opens his mind. Like, he may not necessarily be gay, but it makes him have a better open mind. And when he gets back to work, there's lots of homophobia stuff happening
Yeah.
and stuff. That's just from what I had read about it. I haven't seen it yet.
In some ways, it was kind of a progressive movie for 1980, which we were
Yeah.
not seeing like that.
I also read that it actually was a big turnoff for a lot of gay people. They protested it, which I didn't really think that was great. Just from what I read about it, I haven't seen it yet, but it sounded like Al Pacino was, his role was one of tolerance and acceptance to some point since he's undercover and in the scene. And that these people were protesting it because they didn't want people to just associate male gay people with having this nightlife, this seedy leather bar nightlife. So that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about. I mean, I do remember that there was some protesting at the time about it, but I didn't do like a deep dive into that.
Yeah. Yeah, Al Pacino's response was, that's like saying that just because he did the Godfather movie, that, all American Italian families are mobsters. Like, that's not true. It's one little, vignette into a group. It's not a stereotyping type of movie. They weren't saying that everybody's
Yeah, I
like
think the
that.
thing is that this movie hadn't even come out yet, and they were against it. Like, the gay community was against it because they thought it was going to portray gay people poorly. And that's when that's when Al Pacino was like, this is not an anti-gay movie. So, he was just saying it's not what you think it is, and it's not going to harm the gay community. But again, I didn't do a deep dive, so that's just a little bit of what I remember. And then we have Chick Habit from April March, which kind of every time, like, I always forget that song is in this movie, and then it ends and that plays, and I'm just like, it's a little jarring because I don't feel like it fits the rest of the movie. I mean, the lyrics might fit a little bit, musically, not so much. But anyway, I love that song, and so that song will always and forever remind me of But I'm a Cheerleader because it's in that movie, and that's where I learned about that song, is from that movie. And so I will take any chance that I can to talk about But I'm a Cheerleader, because it was a wonderfully gay ray of sunshine that appeared among the endless string of depressing lesbian movies where the lesbian almost...
Where everybody goes crazy.
Yeah, they die, they go
or die.
insane, or they say, just kidding, I'm not actually into women, and there's like this whole bait and switch thing. And it's like, none of these things are inherently wrong to put in a movie, but when it's the only representation that you ever get, it just becomes frustrating and disappointing. So when But I'm a Cheerleader came along, it felt very life-changing. This was 1999. It was happy, it was campy, it was funny, it was filled with great actors, it broke the mold of what a gay movie was doing. It still holds up today, it's a gay classic. And so I can't help but think of But I'm a Cheerleader when I hear that song. And that's my But I'm a Cheerleader rant for the day.
Well, Chick Habit, as far as this film, I feel like there's elements of that song that tie back into Kill Bill, when you've got the 5, 6, 7, 8s performing on stage. That type of music. I mean, Chick Habit is a little bit different, but it kind of has that same feel. Like, there might be a little bit of that surf guitar buried in there somewhere. It kind of has this okay, not really, but I'm going to say it, kind of the 60 Girls group thing. But I don't know what you call that genre, but like the 5, 6, 7, 8s, where it's like a modern girl group, kind of surf rock. They're trying to pull in those 60s elements or something. And then the lyrics, so that kind of fits in a way with his music. And then the lyrics, hang up the chick habit, hang it up daddy, that's very loosely what just happened, right? He's got a chick habit. Kurt Russell has a chick habit, and, they took care of it.
Yeah.
So Baby It's You, Jungle Julia, headbanging, the babysitter twins walk in, that whole scene. Like, that's a major part of the bar scene is, this little kind of Jungle Julia dance where she's just kind of in her own world for a moment,
I love that
chilling
part.
out, smoking her cigarette. And we hear that song later. It took me, this last watch to even notice this, but when the second group of women are at the gas station, Lee's in the front seat listening to her iPod, and she's singing that same song.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It doesn't matter what they say. I know I'm gonna love you any old way. What would I do without you? I don't want nobody.
So they kind of tied it together. So that's the scene where Stuntman Mike rubs his stubble on Abernathy's naked foot hanging out the window.
So creepy.
What a creep. And, you know, the creepier they make him, like, the more fun the revenge is, right? Like, it makes it redeeming when the ladies have their revenge on him. Yeah, they said that scene where Lee is singing in the car, that was totally spur of the moment. They wanted her to sing something. They didn't know if she could even sing. And, you know, her family apparently was like, yeah, she can sing. She just, you know, she's never really done it for anybody before. So that was like some big moment for her, apparently, that she, you know, had never really sang openly, and that it was, you know, nerve-wracking, but it went over really well. You know, overall, the music I thought was great throughout the film. As you already said, you know, Tarantino films are known for the variety of music. And, you know, the jukebox that they brought in with his 45s in it, you know, several of those 45s, if you look at the list of all the music that's in the machine, has been used in his films. Jackie Brown, Pulp Fiction, Kill Bill, I believe, are all on the list. So he's pulling from his own personal favorites, you know, the 60s and 70s vibe to put into his movie. So that's truly uniquely him, which is really cool.
And I think it's because of his movies that I even learned about surf rock, which I then went on to kind of really enjoy.
Les Paul. Do you like Les Paul? I think he's the originator of that style of guitar playing.
I mean, I haven't done like a super deep dive into surf rock, but I was like, you know what? I think I like surf rock. And then sometimes I'll listen to like a Pandora surf rock station. And it's just, you know, it's good. I tried to learn the Pulp Fiction intro on my guitar. And,
how'd that go?
The neighbors started banging because I was living in an apartment and they wanted me to stop.
Yeah, surf music is great. I love it. It's feel-good music. It always works. I love it when it pops up in his movies.
I would love to see it live, but I don't really know. I mean, are people playing surf rock live these days?
Right. Yeah, you'd probably have to find some type of rockabilly band. So what's your favorite part about the ending?
Well, I really like... Okay, so like after Stuntman Mike is chasing them around and stuff, and I think they lose him for a little bit, and then there's just this part when Zoe Bell is just like, do you want to go get him? And they all like, they barely pause and they all just scream like, yes, let's go get him.
You want to go get him?
Oh, hell yeah! Honey, I think you might want to get out.
Fuck that shit. Let's kill this bastard.
So like, there's just no hesitation. It's just like this dude is chasing them and they're like, we're going to go after him. And they like, there's all this enthusiasm. She grabs a pipe. She hangs out the car. She's like swinging it around. She's like, let's do this. And so I love that part of like just how enthusiastic they are to like go after this guy and get him. And of course I also like, you know, the end when they are, they punch him in the head 37 times in 30 seconds. And there is a roundhouse kick and a boot to the skull. So that's also my favorite, is when they are actually, you know, when you get to that point where they're actually physically beating him down. What about you?
Well, I like the fact that they have no idea what he's already done to other people, yet they still want to kill him. I thought that was fun. I mean, because this is like a fantasy, right? I mean, obviously none of this is right or should be viewed as fun, but this is a fantasy.
Yeah. It's a movie. It's an elevated version of life.
Right. So since they're stunt women, it's like they totally get excited of the challenge, of the chase, of the physical confrontation, all this stuff that the first group of women probably would not have been as well equipped to handle, you know, at the stress level of it all and so forth.
I'm okay.
Oh, shit! God damn it! Oh, you fucking bitch.
course you are. Of course you are. What was I thinking? What was I thinking? Zoe, the fucking cats!
So I thought that was really fun, how it's like they don't even care. They don't even know what he did to anybody else or that he's killed anybody. They just know that he came out of nowhere and was hitting them, while she's on the hood and trying to kill them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's enough. Like that's all it took was him trying to run them off the road. They're fine. They could have gone on their way.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, they are going to go and, as Kim says, tap that ass, which I love that part. That is probably the funniest part. That makes me laugh so hard every time she says tap that ass.
Oh, you know I can't let you go without tapping that ass. Oh, fuck me. One.
Kim?
More.
Kim?
Time! Booyah!
I think she says it 4 times,
Oh,
right?
wow.
I'm going to tap that ass one more time. And, then it's like, what happened with their friend? They leave the friend with Jasper. It's like, I want to know what happened. Is she okay?
I know.
Lee, this is Jasper. Jasper, Lee. Now you 2 kids stay out of trouble.
Hey, good looking. Be back to pick you up later.
Gulp.
Is she also maybe a stunt person? Maybe she's,
No.
got some other skill. Like, I want to just pretend she's like a martial artist or something, that she could handle herself. Like, why would they leave her so vulnerable?
Yeah, it doesn't, I feel like
and
that's...
set it up.
Yeah, that's the only part that doesn't make sense to me about that half of the movie, is leaving their friend like that with that guy.
Right, I mean, it's Abernathy, right? And that was another thing that seemed kind of parallel with Kill Bill is, and this might be stretching it. So Abernathy's ringtone is the song of the whistling from Kill Bill, which takes us back to Elle Driver, played by Daryl Hannah in Kill Bill. That's her song. That's her ringtone in Kill Bill. And it's interesting, like they've kind of tied this together in a way, because when they're in the car, they're talking about Abernathy's boyfriend. I believe that's who was talking, that he was cheating on her with Daryl Hannah's body double.
Yeah, okay.
And so they're talking about that. But the interesting part to me is that character, Elle Driver, is kind of what I would call a sellout, right? Like, she will sell you out. That's kind of the ongoing theme with that character, that she will turn her back on people, and she tries to kill Beatrix, the bride, Uma Thurman, when they used to be on the same side. And I felt like there was a crossover. Like, Abernathy totally sold that girl out to Jasper.
Mm-hmm.
How about this? I'll talk him into it. But if I talk him into it, I go along.
How you gonna do that?
That's my problem. But don't worry. He'll say yes.
What are you gonna do? Blow him?
No. I'm gonna insinuate that Lee's gonna blow him.
Like, that was straight up selling her out. It was so weird. So I felt like that was kind of intentional because of that. It's really strange why she would even do that. Like, there was no reason to... I mean, if he's crazy, or we don't know anything about this character, but we just know he's creepy, he could have really taken all that very literally. And that could have left Lee in a very, very bad situation.
And they even say that she's an actor or an actress in porn movies. So they're like putting that in his mind. It's just, it's so weird.
Right, and she's not, though, right? She's
No.
just a regular actress.
Yeah, she's just
she's
regular.
a model. So I really want to know what happened to her. Is she in a pit somewhere under his house? Did she beat the crap out of him and leave? Did he not bother her? What ended up happening? Because they're over here having this complete celebration, jumping up, cheering, smiling that they just killed this guy, and they've totally forgot about their friend.
Yeah, so Quentin Tarantino, we need to hear from you. What happens to
Right.
Lee? Let us know.
And what happens to the car? How do they take this car back?
Maybe they just kill him.
They're test driving a car.
Maybe she killed Jasper. Like,
Right.
maybe Lee killed Jasper, then they come back to get her, and, like, they just keep the car because he's dead. And they all take off.
Right. And maybe Lee is a killer. Maybe we don't know
Yeah.
anything about her. Maybe they've left her there on purpose to kill him, to steal the car, not knowing that it's going to be damaged. I want some backstory here between these different dynamics. But, but how do you return a car after you have totally destroyed it? That would be horrible.
Yeah. Did they leave her with the keys to the car that they came in on?
Right.
Because maybe she was able to... I mean, I would hope so. I would hope that they gave her the keys and then she could just, like, take off if she needed to.
Well, I'm reading right now, I do have verification that Jasper is the same character in Kill Bill. It's called the Trucker.
So you were right. You pieced all of that together on your own.
So Jasper was an automobile repairman who was also the rapist who attempted to rape Beatrix in Kill Bill while she was thought to be in a coma. So when she comes out of the coma, she goes and kills him. So he's definitely a rapist in this movie, and they've left her with a rapist.
So now I'm reading an interview with her about the movie. Maybe she'll give us some clues. She says, "My place was to be the cute, naive, girly one. And in the end, I'm the collateral." She's saying that her purpose was to be the collateral in the end. The girls trick you into leaving you alone with that mechanic. Isn't that cruel? So she said, so the actress in an interview, she says, yes, this is really mean that they left her, but they say, you have the car there, you could hotwire it. But then she's like Lee could have hotwired a car. I was Yeah, she was also sleeping. Like, she didn't even know. And they were all supposed to be hungover, and they were partying all night. And she's totally clueless, because I don't think anybody even tells her what's going on. So they just completely leave her. And she just says, yeah, it was really mean. So I read that from the time that they leave Lee and they take off, we spend 20 minutes in the car. And so, like, a majority of that is the car chase. So that's a very long, car chase scene. Mm-hmm. So do you have any favorite kills for this movie?
Well, I think the stuntman Mike kill's great because we have now built up this feeling within us of wanting them to kill him. Mm-hmm. Also, I mean, he makes a few comments which make you want to kill him, like how he was just having fun. And, and he's crying at some point about, begging them not to kill him, which makes you just want him to be killed in a savage way, knowing that he killed the 5 women earlier in the movie. As far as the first car scene with the 4 in it, the Jungle Julia one with the foot out the window, I think that was my favorite, just because everyone knows you don't put your foot out the window. How about you?
Yeah, I agree that Stuntman Mike, that was one of my favorite kills. And my second favorite kill was the tire over the face.
Ah.
I love that. It's just gruesome to me. I mean, and the leg was definitely pretty gruesome as well, but that tire over the face, that was pretty good.
Yeah, I actually had to close my eyes or turn my head with the tire on the face. So maybe that means it is the best kill, if I can't even watch it. So, do you have any favorite or notable scenes?
Yes. So, I've got a few scenes that I really like. So, one of them that I really loved was the butterfly explanation scene with Marcy. So, when they're all at the bar and Jungle Julia is like, watch out, because she's trying to explain, like, something's going to happen tonight. It's kind of like I had, like, a little bit of, I keep saying, I look for the gay content. This isn't truly gay, but, like, it gave me a little bit of gay girl dreams going on there, like watching these two. So Marcy gets kind of butch and she sits down and, her voice gets deeper and she's just like, "Hey, butterfly."
So, butterfly, can I buy you a drink?
I'd love one.
What can I get you?
I'd take a margarita.
Here you go.
And I just like how they're kind of like flirting with each other about this. Mm-hmm. Like, I love the gayness of it, but I love the dialogue as well. It's just a really fun scene to me.
Yeah, I like that scene too. And I think Shanna says something like, you better stop. You guys are getting me hot, or something.
Oh yeah,
like
she
that.
does.
Barry.
Pleased to meet you, Barry.
Y'all are getting me hot.
And I was like, here, here.
Yeah, that's kind of, like you said, that goes back to that day in the life type of dialogue. Like, this is just, they're just shooting the breeze at the bar. Like, this is very typical conversation and, acting things out with your friends and stuff. I mean, who hasn't done that? So it's just kind of, like, you can relate to it.
Yeah, I wish that I could...
It's a good scene.
Yeah, I wish I could live in that world. So I also love the rainy makeout scene. But they go outside of the bar, it's raining, and he wants to make out.
Look, I know you guys are going to Lake LBJ and we can't come.
I want to make it. Oh.
Okay, just stop with the wine. It's not attractive.
It's kind of annoying that he's making these whiny faces and stuff, but it's also like, there's something about it that I just keep watching. I'm just like, it's very interesting and funny to me. But I like how she's demanding. She's like, okay, we can do this, but here's all of the rules about this.
Right.
And he's like, we'll do it.
Go in your car, we make out for 6 minutes, and that's it. Deal?
Great.
No. Deal or no deal. If you're gonna whine when I pull the plug in 6 minutes, we could just walk back inside the fucking bar right now.
Deal. No whining.
And no begging.
And no begging. When you say done, it's done.
And like for me, if somebody was saying that to me in that kind of way, I would probably be too freaked out to then go on and like make out with them. I would just be like, oh my God, I'm in a panic. I would probably just like run away. But like at the same time, maybe not, because she's completely laying out everything. She's like, here's the rules, follow the rules, and we're going to have a good time.
Right, like she's ready to go, as long as he follows the rules.
Yeah. And I just love the line when she's like, kiss good and make sure my hair don't get wet.
Kiss good and make sure my hair don't get wet.
And he's like your typical emo. Like, we've got to have an emo in here for some reason.
Yeah, 2007. Emo in high effect.
Right, and I mean, since we have Googled so much to prepare, we know now that he is an electronic musician.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of goes in with the emo, kind of. But yeah, I feel like his character was supposed to be straight up emo sensitive. As you say, the faces he's making and stuff. Like, he's got a sensitive edge, and she's kind of in control and, setting all those boundaries very clearly for him.
Yeah.
I like that scene, too.
Yeah. One thing I don't get is why everybody is so friendly to a strange man, stuntman Mike.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I was in a bar, if you were in a bar, if we were together hanging out and this guy was like creeping around, I mean, I don't make it a point to talk to like strange guys in bars because I'm sure you've had horrible experiences with like talking to guys in bars who are not gay.
Mm-hmm.
It just never really goes well because, I mean, a lot of times, like, if you're with a girlfriend, it's like they start trying to hit on you and they're like, let's get together. And especially somebody that age, it's just like, I'm kind of surprised that they're so friendly to him and willing to talk to him. Mm-hmm. And Jungle Julie at one point, she introduces herself, she shakes his hand. I don't know why they're so friendly to that guy. That's not me, but maybe that's like they are in Texas, so maybe it's like a southern thing that I don't have, where you're just friendly to everybody.
Mm-hmm. Well, having been to Texas, I never felt like they were friendly.
Oh, really?
I mean, like, for me, from
overly
my
friendly
experiences, it's like there's parts of Kentucky where people are like that, right? But it's like you don't really see that, and I think we always kind of think that way about Texas. Like, we've always been told there's this great hospitality or whatever, but I've not experienced that in my few trips to Texas. But the confusion, though, for me was that he appears to be someone new to the bar. However, the bartender knows his name. He acts like maybe he's already been there at least once.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there's an attraction because he isn't overly trying to mingle with them. He's at the bar, he's eating his nachos, he's leaving everybody alone. So maybe there's not a threat.
And maybe because he doesn't fit in with everybody else, like with the way everybody else looks. And he's, he's not the same age range, but, he kind of on the surface has like an interesting story because he is a stuntman. So that's kind of intriguing.
Right. Well, and you can tell he's a stuntman by looking at him. You can tell he does something with race cars or something. He's got that jacket.
Mm-hmm. So what's your name, Icy?
Stuntman Mike.
Stuntman Mike's your name.
You ask anybody.
Hey, Warren. Who is this guy?
Stuntman Mike.
And who the hell is Stuntman Mike?
He's Stuntman.
So another one of my favorite scenes, which I've already talked about, is the lap dance scene.
Why don't you go get ready for your lap dance?
My only gripe with it is that I wish that she was not wearing flip-flops. I think it makes it look... it's not so classy when you're wearing flip-flops and doing a lap dance.
What would you have preferred her to wear with her
I don't
very
know.
short khaki shorts?
I don't know. Because that's a good question, because then it's like, well, what else is she going to wear?
No shoes?
I don't know. I don't know what girly shoes look like. You know, I'm more of like Converse or like, you know, just some tennis shoes. And maybe she's not that kind of girl. So I don't know what kind of girly shoes she may have been wearing.
I felt like that scene is what made it a grindhouse, right? It goes back to that burlesque grinding type of dancing. Like, I felt like they had to have a lap dance in this movie, period, for him to put all these pieces together as his tribute. And then the second thought I have on this scene is that I had watched a piece with Quentin where he said that when he found her, he knew she was this character. Like, he instantly, like, he wasn't going to audition anybody else. He knew it was her, and she loves to dance naturally, and that she came up with that scene. Like they said, move towards him, and she got down on the floor and crawled. Like she came up with it, her own choreography.
Yeah, I think we probably watched the same thing where he said that he had some parts, but then she filled in all the rest of it.
Right.
And he loved it. And I love it too.
Right. I just don't know how she had a change of heart, though. She'd already been drinking quite a bit. They were ready to leave, and then she's just like, fine, I'm going to give you your lap dance.
Yeah, that's another thing to discuss. Because she doesn't want to do it at first.
Right. She didn't want to do it at all. When Jungle Julia tells her about it, she's like, you what? Like she really is not down with this at all. And she almost gets through the night without having to do it. And, all of a sudden she has this change of heart.
Well, I think it's like, the only thing that I could think of is that it's because of everything that Stuntman Mike said to her. It triggered something in her, so she was like, well, because he was saying, yeah, she rejects him, and he says, okay, but, and then he pulls out a book, and he's like, you're going in my book. Whatever he says.
Under chicken shit.
Yeah, and he starts saying, he's like, I think that you are wounded because nobody actually asked you, and you thought you were going to be, you thought guys were going to be crawling all over you, trying to get a lap dance, and nobody at all asked you for it, and you're a little bit wounded about that.
Why should I be wounded?
Because you expected guys to be pestering you all night, but from your look, I can tell nobody pestered you at all. That kind of hurt your feelings a little bit, didn't it? There are few things as fetching as a bruised ego and a beautiful angel.
And so I think that kind of egged her on a little bit to make her feel like she needed to, I don't know, she just needed to like prove him wrong or something.
Right.
To feel like she had one over him because of everything that he was saying to her.
Right.
And then she went for it.
Well, maybe also to show him what he can't have.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, with that character, with Arlene, there's a lot of control, as she was setting up the rules earlier with Nate in the rain and the umbrella and her hair. So maybe that was a part of it too, that she wants control, and she just felt something just kind of shifted in her, like, yeah, I'll give you a lap dance, but that's all you're going to get, kind of a tease.
And we know that she's scared of him because she's the one in the movie who keeps seeing the car. And then the music changes and gets very serious and kind of scary.
Right.
And she's afraid of that car. And she even admits to him she's afraid of that car. It is interesting, She's afraid of him, but she's like, I'm going to go ahead and give you a lap dance. It's like she's trying to prove something.
And maybe she's having some type of psychic moment, energy. She can feel he's not good. She can feel his car is not good. And, maybe it could even be that by giving him the lap dance, she thinks it'll make him leave them alone. Like maybe she's thinking, he's going to follow us, or, this guy's creepy.
Yeah.
Because that happens a lot in real life with women as well, just like we saw in Carnival of Souls when she she lets Mr. Linden in her room after she's already made it very clear she wants nothing to do with him. That, that happens in life where you feel so afraid that you cross that line to kind of smooth it over to make them lose interest in you or something, as opposed to them becoming fixated on you.
Yeah. It's a tricky situation.
Yeah.
Quentin Tarantino, call us. We need answers.
My number's 513.
So I have a question about that guy with the fashion magazines. Why does he have fashion magazines behind the counter in part 2? That always confuses me.
You know, I got other fashion magazines for sale behind the counter.
No, that's okay. This'll be all.
Thought I'd ask.
Thanks anyway.
Have a good one. I got this month's issue of Italian Vogue.
This month's?
I felt that part 1 and part 2 are a complete contrast, right? And that was one of the contrasts, and that's an early contrast in part 2 to show us the contrast, which is she goes in, Abernathy goes in, she's looking at magazines, and Lee says, oh, by the way, I think I'm in this magazine, which lets us know that she's a model. And when Abernathy's checking out, he mentions to her that he's got these high fashion magazines, that they're his personal collection. And I think that was supposed to be a contrast for us between the creepy guys at the bar who are just trying to get the girls drunk and they're trying to figure out how to go back to their birthday getaway with them, and this nasty guy eating the nachos who's now going to kill 5 women. Now you've got this complete contrast with this guy who, is more sensitive, or, he's just a different kind of guy who likes fashion. That's what I truly think. When I first saw it, it was confusing, and I thought, oh, is he using them for his personal, porn? And I thought, no, that's a little crazy because, a porn magazine would be cheaper than these high fashion import magazines.
Yeah.
So I think it was supposed to show us a real contrast of just a different kind of guy. That we're in a different place now in our story, and that everything has changed. I think that's what he was supposed to represent, because there really was no reason for that character otherwise.
Do you think he might be gay and he's, really into fashion?
Yeah, I mean, that could be it as well. That he's, they're showing a more feminine, less masculine character. Maybe he's gay. There's something different about him.
Not that you're gay for owning fashion magazines, but...
Right.
It's a curiosity for this movie.
I also found it funny how they couldn't just buy the magazine. It was $27, and she's like, we need 4 people to go in with us to buy this magazine. And I thought, that's crazy, because at the end of the movie, they've completely trashed this car that might be worth $40,000, when earlier they couldn't split a $27 magazine. And they're not concerned about the car destroyed at the end.
Yeah, maybe they really aren't that great of people. They left their friend. They trashed a car with no hesitation. Who are these people?
And they killed a man. Jumping up in the air laughing.
Do you have any fun facts or trivia for us?
Oh, I've got a few. So the license plates on both of Stuntman Mike's cars paid tribute to 2 famous car chase vehicles. So JJZ 107 was Steve McQueen's plate number in Bullet, and 983 Dan was on the Dodge Charger in Dirty Mary Crazy Larry. I personally didn't even notice his license plates when I was watching it.
Yeah, me either.
What I did find interesting was that Kim has named her yellow Mustang the Little Pussy Wagon, which is one of the very many Kill Bill references in the movie. So in Kill Bill, when she gets out of the hospital, she steals Buck's truck, because Buck is this disgusting man who has been allowing men to rape her for money. So she kills him, she takes his keys, and when she goes out to get his truck, she, clicks the little...
A key fob?
Yes. She clicks the little key fob to see which one's his, and it's this ridiculous truck that says Pussy Wagon on it. So in this, Kim says her Mustang is Little Pussy Wagon, which I thought was really cute.
Mm-hmm. So something that I have is... Something that I always notice in this movie is, if we go back to the butterfly scene, where Stuntman Mike is like talking about the book and he uses that weird voice and he's like, "You're in my book, that's no good. Everyone I ever meet goes in this book." Like, I'm always like, what is he doing? Like, it's clearly
That's
something.
John Wayne.
Yeah, so in my research, it was like, oh, he's impersonating John Wayne. So that's one of the things that I found out that I didn't know. So now that part makes sense to me.
You know how people say, "You're okay in my book," or "in my book, that's no good"? Well, I actually have a book. And everybody I ever meet goes in this book. And now I've met you, and you're going in the book.
That's one of my favorite parts because, and I think that has to be a Quentin Tarantino request because some people just love a good John Wayne impersonation. That's a very well-known voice, and he's, Quentin's into all this old stuff. Maybe he's into, Westerns, and John Wayne's the king of spaghetti Western style. So I feel like that was like a special request, or like maybe he knew that Kurt Russell could do this John Wayne impersonation.
Mm-hmm.
So I just felt like that was just one of those little details that Quentin just really wanted.
Yeah.
And it cracks me up every time because it makes me feel like Stuntman Mike may be partially delusional when he keeps going into that. He does it like 3 times, I think, because there would have been a lot of stuntmen for Western movies, but that would have been before his time.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe he grew up wanting to be John Wayne.
Maybe.
Which adds a whole other element to this.
Yeah.
The 2 police officers who are in the hospital questioning Stuntman Mike are played by father and son actors, Michael and James Parks. This pair also plays cops in Kill Bill and the 2 From Dusk Till Dawn movies. So that's kind of fun that they keep playing the same characters.
Mm-hmm. The next thing that I have would be that the diner conversation in part 2 is a direct mirror of the opening scene from Reservoir Dogs. Have you watched that?
Never seen Reservoir Dogs.
Oh, you should watch it.
So, Zoe, the genius, wants to take a picture of me. It's dark as hell and you can't see shit. So she's got her camera and keeps saying, "Step back a little." So I do. Then a little further. So I step back a little further. Then a little more. So I do. Then I realize I'm right at the edge of a 7-foot concrete ditch with God knows how many rocks and broken bottles and rats in it. And if I fell in that fucking thing, I probably would have broken my fucking neck.
The interesting thing about that, I mean, it's been a while since I've seen it, but I believe everything kind of takes place in one room. I mean, they're in the diner, but like you don't ever actually see the action because everybody's running into this room and then they start talking about all the things that are happening because I think it's a heist. They're trying to do a heist and then like escape from it. And so they don't ever show that part of it. They're just showing like people coming into this room and like freaking out about various things like over and over. So it's like very heavy with the dialogue. So if you're into that, but yeah, this scene is a mirror of that. Another thing about that is that they're talking about Madonna in Reservoir Dogs. So you should definitely, I mean, I've said before I'm obsessed with 80s and 90s Madonna. But they're just having a conversation about the meaning of Like a Virgin from Madonna. And it's just all of these men who are like in their 40s or whatever, hanging out, talking about having a deep conversation about Like a Virgin from Madonna. But anyway, back to Death Proof. That's a mirror of that scene visually. With the camera panning around in a circle, and like it's a one take, unless there's some kind of camera tricks they did. It appears to be like a one take. And if you look in the background, you can see Stuntman Mike eating at the counter.
So, have you ever seen Big Trouble in Little China with Kirk Douglas?
I've heard of it, but I don't think that I've seen it.
That's a very popular 80s movie by John Carpenter.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you look closely at the wall of the bar during the film's opening sequence, you'll see that there's a tank top with a samurai and a rising sun on it. And it's actually the same tank top that Kurt Russell's character wore in Big Trouble Little China. And that is my last piece of trivia.
Which brings us to the awards.
Yay! How many awards do you have for this movie?
I probably have like 7 or 8 awards.
Okay, I've got 5.
Oh, okay, cool. So my first award would go to the music, which we've already discussed. I don't think there's anything else for me to say at this point, but I give it an award for the music.
My first award is Best Car Chase. As you said, it went on for 20 minutes, the last part of the movie, and it was just amazing. And I just think it's really cool the way they have to film car chases, right? Like that took a lot of effort and was special. It really made the movie. It really pumps you up.
Yeah. So I also gave that an award. So I agree with you on that. So another award I gave was for the dialogue, which we've already talked about. There's a lot of great one-liners and like funny stuff in here. So I love the dialogue. A day in the life, listening to these characters talk.
So my next award is Best Car Wreck, which would be the 4 in the car,
Mm-hmm.
the leg out the window, and the wheel to the face. Gnarly.
Yeah.
The gnarly car wreck. I thought it was filmed very well. You know, that was a very, even though it's very gnarly, I thought it was very well done. The way they made it all come together. And like you said, they break it out and show you each of them, you know, what happens to all 4 of them individually.
So I give an award for the lap dance, which you probably could have seen coming. I think it's a great, it's a great lap dance scene. That's all I have to say about that. I just love that scene. I love that song. I think it's great.
So my next award, I was gonna tell a personal story. I stopped myself. Okay.
Why? About lap dances?
I was
Strippers?
just gonna say
Your strip club days?
Right. I used to spend a lot of time at strip clubs. Because a friend worked there. I wasn't going there to go there. And I've seen plenty of lap dances, and I must say that was a very good lap dance. My next award would be Best Live Stunts. Loved the car stunts.
Quentin Tarantino would be very happy with that award.
Yes, I think he would. They achieved it with the car. I know that they were going like 20 miles per hour for real. They weren't really flying when Zoe was on the hood. But I thought it was very believable that it looked like they were really going fast, and it makes your heart race. You know, it does everything it's supposed to do. So I thought the live stunts were very good.
Mm-hmm. I give it an award for the cast because it's just a great cast all around. I love watching. I'll say I don't love all the characters, but I love watching all of the characters. I don't think there's one character that I am annoyed by. I love watching all of them.
I enjoyed the second group of women more than the first group of women. And I think it's just because they got to be more physical and interactive and go on this whole revenge and all that. It made you like connect with them more. And I just thought they were funnier, which also could be because they were in such a stressful scenario that they could really pull in those humor moments, better. They had the opportunity, they had a different opportunity than the first group.
I feel the opposite, and my favorite was everybody from the first half.
Which one was your favorite? Did you have a favorite?
Of all the characters? I mean, I really like Arlene, and I think Jungle Julia has a lot of really great lines that I love. And then there's the one who is like the southern girl. With the southern accent? What's her name? Shanna. I just kind of like listening to her talk. But, I mean, I guess I would say that it's Jungle Julia and Arlene are my favorites.
Well, let's see. My favorites were Kim from the second half. I think she's freaking hilarious. Like everything she said was hilarious, and it was very natural. And probably my second favorite is Abernathy because she speaks in a matter-of-fact way. Like every single thing she said was funny as well because she just, had this delivery. It was just funny. Just everything she said to me was funny because just the way that she delivered it.
Yeah. I don't think I said this, but I love Zoe Bell.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know who she was, and I watched this, and I loved her after watching this. And I kind of got a crush on her because that's kind of my favorite accent, if I can say that. but also I just think she's awesome, and so I kind of got a crush on her after this movie.
Well, see, I knew who she was as far as Xena and Kill Bill before this. So for me, before I watched it, I just was so excited because I knew that if she was acting, that he was going to be putting her in some major stunt thing. Like I already knew it was coming. So yeah, I was very, very excited about her being in this. So my next award was just the fact that he took a risk on Zoe, knowing that she wasn't an actress and putting her in a major role. And it, as I said earlier, her first major role is a Quentin Tarantino film. So that's pretty cool.
I give the movie an award for style. He always has a lot of style in every movie that he does. And I love it because there's not that many people out there, I think, who are making movies that are so stylish and that you can tell you're like, oh, that's this person's movie. It's like, there's not a lot of people out there, I think, that are doing that. So I give it an award for the style.
And I have one more award, which is for Tracy Thoms, who plays Kim. It felt like she created a female Samuel L. Jackson type character. And I'm actually getting this from something Quentin said, because I didn't honestly recognize it myself until he said it. But he said he found her from theater. She had not had any feature film. She's a theater performer. He said, but when she read that script, that she went right into character that was completely natural, and he viewed her as kind of like Samuel L. Jackson in Pulp Fiction, that she kind of had that edge to her once she started, getting really hyped up on her journey of revenge, and I felt like that deserved an award because, to just be a theater actress and pull that off and it be so natural. That I feel like she was the most natural of all the characters. So I thought she deserved a special award for that.
So I've got 3 more awards and they could kind of all tie in together. So I would say I give it an award for the most satisfying death of an antagonist in a movie, which could tie into me giving it an award for having the most punches in the shortest amount of time. I've never seen that before. And my last award is for that head crush with the boot. At the end. So that was vicious, great. Yeah, so that gets an award from me. And what would you rate this movie?
Well, on our scale of 1 to 3, where 1 is you wouldn't watch it again, 2 is it was okay, but you may not watch it again, and 3 is you loved it and you'd watch it over and over, I gave it a 3.
I also gave it a 3. I think everybody saw that coming. But yeah, I do rewatch this movie and it's always great fun, and I will continue to rewatch this movie.
And there you have it. That is our review of Death Proof by Quentin Tarantino from 2007. I'm Amy Ketchum.
And I'm Amy Cassio.
Be sure to tune in next week when we discuss Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 on the AA Horror Highway. Bye.
See you next week.
Connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, or Patreon at AA Horror Highway. Find us on Twitter at Horror Highway, that's Horror HWY. Also, be sure to take a moment and rate and review us on iTunes. You can find all of our social media links and more by going to horrorhighway.com, that's horrorhwy.com.